Hey everybody, welcome to another action-packed, exciting episode of Scotty's Record Shop. Before we get into this thing, I want to say hello and welcome to our new subscribers. I say this every stinking video, and I know some of you probably are sick of it, but it is what it is, and it's very sincere. I appreciate each and every one of you, and I am very grateful for anybody that watches these silly little things. Like I always say, I'm not doing this for fame or fortune, and it's a damn good thing because it ain't happening, right? It's just not happening here for me. But every video now, it seems like we're just growing a little bit, a couple subscribers at a time, and that's great. I appreciate it. So thank you for all of you who are joining recently, and thank you for all of you who have been putting up with my shenanigans for years. There you go. Thank you, thank you, thank you. This particular video, when I finished my video last week, I'm like, crap, I don't know what I'm going to even do next week, and I just let it sit. I was like, I'm not going to just, I'm just wait and see what happens. Unfortunately, something did happen, and of course, that's the passing of William Perizador, who is the founding member of the band Chicago. He passed away earlier this week from complications to Alzheimer's, which is I don't have to tell you is a horrible disease. I worked in nursing for years, the nursing field, and I saw a lot of it, and it's just horribly painful for people who know and love the person who's going through it. And it's terrifying sometimes for the person that's even going through it. So my condolences to the Perizeta family and to those who knew and loved the guy. He was a great woodwind player. He was the saxophonist, and he played a lot of flute as well on the song "Color My World." He's that sound, the guy that's playing the solo on "Color My World," which everybody knows. That flute at the end, that was William. That was Will. So he's going to be sadly missed. He did step back from the band. Uh, I don't want to say several years ago, but what, 4, 5, 6 years ago, he stepped away because he just needed to retire. They said, and yes, he did because he was, you know, Alzheimer's was sinking in, and it was making it hard for the guy. So slow, painful decline, but we still have the music, and he was on every Chicago album, at least studio album of new material, with the exception of the last album, which came out in 2022. Um, he wasn't on that. He had left the band by that point in time. Uh, Trying to figure out how I was going to do this because some people, I've seen some people in the past that they just do the Terry Kath stuff up to 78. And actually, it'd be 77 because he passed away in early 78. And I thought, well, there's some other music beyond that, but there's a certain point where I basically gave up on Chicago in some respects. This is, if you're a massive Chicago, I love Chicago, but if you're a massive fan and even love like the last album that came out in 2022, you may want to go get a drink. You may want to take some sedatives or whatever. These are my opinions. This is a ranking. It's my opinion. I've decided that the cutoff point, even though I decided the cutoff point be when Peter Cetera left in 1984, 85, left in 85, I think. I picked that point because at that point in time, we're going to get into it, but that was, we'll get into it. Let us know what you think. Um, some of these are going to be hot takes. I know it. But these are my thoughts. These are my opinions. I grew up with these albums. I've loved Chicago. One of the very first things I ever bought with my own money was a cassette copy of Chicago 9, which is the first Chicago Greatest Hits album. And to this day, I absolutely love that album. It's not complete. It was just one of many Chicago Greatest Hits packages. But I love that album to this day. What are we going to look at then? We're going to look at the first. We're going to look up the Chicago 17. Obviously, we're not going to do live albums, so we're not going to deal with live at Carnegie Hall. Uh, in all, I counted, and you know, If I got this a little wrong, I apologize. 38 albums by Chicago to date. 21, I believe 21 were studio albums of new material. Now they've done some big band albums, right? Night and Day. That's a great album, by the way. A Latter Day. It's all swing music, but I dug that stuff. They did a Nashville sessions, which I don't mind, but I still feel it's kind of useless because it's just them in the studio in Nashville playing older material. It's the newer band playing older material, and they do an exceptional job, even though there's only like one person left, maybe two, in the Chicago show that you go see now, left of the original lineup. They're all wonderful musicians. They're great. But, I'm glad I saw Chicago a long time ago when it was mostly, I did see them after Terry Kath passed away. But, I still saw them when they were kind of still in their height of fame. Okay, let's get into this. Again, there's going to be some hot takes. We're going to start off with a hot take for some of you. Really going to be tough. Okay, I'm sorry. But as you'll see, there are albums that I ranked higher than by the way, 14. We got 14 CDs here. The one at 14, not that there isn't, let's just point it out. This could be triggering for some of you. It just so happens to be their biggest selling album of all time. I think it was 4 or 5 top 40 hits. Massive seller for them. Talking about Chicago 17. The only way I can listen to this is if I say this is a really good pop band from the mid 80s. This is really Chicago, because I connect this too much with earlier Chicago, and it just is so far removed. David Foster. This is the second David Foster album, with him on in the producer chair and writing and arranging. Robert Lamb is missing in action again for the most part, which is really, really sad. The horns are kind of stifled, the horns are what makes Chicago so wonderful. Part of it, a big part of it. So, there's a lot of hits on here. And although it's super cheesy, keyboardy, mid 80s, if you like mid 80s. I just remember when this came out, I was like, okay, I'm done. They have gone totally Hollywood on this. And you're going to laugh when you see some of the other albums coming up. And I like them more. And you're going to go, you're saying this is going totally Hollywood, totally pop? I am. Chicago 17 at 14. At 13, 14. Chicago 14. I don't mind this album as much. I think this. I don't listen to a lot of these lower ones that much once in a while, but I would much rather listen to this. Even though this is really a predecessor to this. You've got Peter Cetera really stepping up to the plate more ballady stuff on here. This is funny too. I just realized this. Their biggest selling album, their worst selling album by far. I don't mind Thunder and Lightning. They're doing some yard work here. Don't apologize. I apologize. It's not great, but maybe it's just because I don't mind late 70s, early 80s music, and I'm not a huge fan of the textures and sounds of mid 80s music. It doesn't really matter who it is. I just don't really care for it. So maybe I can settle with this a little better. Not a horrible album, but Columbia dropped them like a hot potato after this one. They were like, okay, you're in the basement now. This is it. So they got dumped after this, but it's an okay album. Not a horrible album. Not a great album. At 13, we have 14. At 12, we have 13. This is the disco album for the most part. This came out after Hot Streak, and the album Hot Streets, which was the first album they ever put out without a number, but they jumped back on the number thing for lucky number 13, which wasn't lucky. Didn't do that well for them. It did better than Chicago 14. I went back and listened to this recently because there are certain albums that are like, I don't know. Do I remember it? How would I feel about it now? And I ended up liking this more. I don't know why. Yeah, there's some disco-y stuff on here. Hell, the Stones are doing disco, okay? Let's get real here. The Stones even sold out in some ways. Yeah, I know. I'm sorry. Stop throwing things, okay? But it is true. The Stones did some disco stuff on some girls, right? And they did it great. Don't get me wrong. And some of the stuff on here is pretty damn good. So anyway, at number 12, we have 13. Kind of crazy, but that's the way it works. Okay, this is going to be a hot take. This really could be a hot take here. I know a lot of people. By the way, I'm going to mention this. I bought a lot of these when they came out. I have, downstairs in the house there's a ton of vinyl. All of this stuff is on vinyl downstairs. I'm just choosing lately to be up here in one of the bedrooms where some of the CDs that I own are. And a lot of these CDs, a dear friend of mine, 3 years ago, Tony Renauld passed away. And Tony, you're a star. Your name is on your name is on Facebook, not Facebook, but YouTube. Great guy. When he passed away, his family said you used to sit and listen to, you used to sit with him all the time, listen to his CDs. So you can have all of his CDs. And it was, 500 CDs or something that I acquired it. He was a huge friggin' Chicago fan. So pretty much all of this stuff actually came from the Tony Renauld library, I guess you could call it. So thank you, Tony, wherever you are, my friend. Miss you, love you. Thank you. Anyway, he would have been so upset about Perazetta passing away. He loved Chicago. He was not happy even when Terry Kath passed, because he loved that early stuff. But anyway, okay, hot take. Back, I digress. Hot take. Chicago 3. Don't hit me. There's some great stuff on here. But in my opinion, now this is the third double album that these guys put out in a row in 2 years. Okay, that's a hell of a lot of material. And these guys were super talented and they had it, but they were starting to run out of gas on this. There's some great stuff. Free is a killer song. The singles off of this, Low Down, that's an okay song. It's not bad. Low Down and Free were the singles, and they didn't do that well. They both made it into the top 40, but they didn't do that well. They had to resort back to the first couple of albums to get some more singles. Columbia did. I mean, this is a good album. It's just long, and I think it's, first of all, again, kids, how do I feel about double albums? Okay. Which is odd, because the 2 albums that came before this, they're much higher in my countdown. Not perfect albums, but much higher. Anyway, at number 11? Number 11. Not much more to say. It's a good album, but for me, not a great album. Chicago 3. Another one that my friend Tony and I used to argue about this album all the time. He thought this was a great album. It was one of his favorite Chicago albums. And I'm like, there's something wrong with this album. And I'm not quite sure what it is. Chicago 6. I actually had bought the cassette of this. Actually, I got the cassette in a pawn shop. Back about 75, 76. As a matter of fact, I first purchased the Chicago's Greatest Hits, Chicago 9, and fell in love with them. And I saw this in a pawn shop and thought, well, this is going to be great. I recognized 2 songs on here, Just You and Me, Feeling Stronger Every Day. Fantastic songs. And I got it, and I was like, the rest of the album is okay. But it somehow feels unfinished. And I think the reason why is because of the 2 hits off this album were so immaculate and so wonderful and so well produced and so amazing. They are wonderful songs that the rest of the album seems not quite as good. Although there's some good stuff on here. I mean, it starts off kind of weird with Critics' Choice, which is just Robert Lamb and a piano shredding critics. What do you want from me? You know, I'm giving it all I have. What the hell? You know, it's a good song. It seems a little incomplete, though. Incomplete, whatever. It seems, and this whole album, I don't know. I mean, it's not a horrible album, but obviously it's at number 10, right? I think 1, 2, 3, 4. Number 9. Number 9. Number 9. Yeah, number 9. Chicago 6. Sorry, Tony, it hasn't changed. I try. Not bad, but just is what it is. Okay. This was an album that really... Now, there's a lot of places where I can say certain albums were turning points for Chicago. This album, I don't know if it was a turning point completely musically, but it definitely caused some issues. You know, this is kind of a similar situation as the band Styx, okay? Styx, everybody in Styx wanted to be a rock and roll band. Dennis DeYoung writes this love song to his wife. It becomes a number 1 hit. Biggest hit they ever had to this day. And the rest of the band is pissed off because we don't want to be a ballad band. We don't want to be known for a ballad. This is what happened here. The Chocolate Bar album, otherwise known as Chicago 10, 1976. If You Leave Me Now. Peter Cetera. Making sure my door doesn't smack close because we got some wind going on here. Peter Cetera wrote that song, and the rest of the band, quite honestly, was not happy. Yeah, they got a number 1 hit. Isn't that great? Problem was there were other people in this band who wrote a lot of music. Peter Cetera was not the primary songwriter. He wrote some songs, but he was not the primary songwriter. And the situation with primary songwriters is primary songwriters get more money. When you have big hits as a songwriter, you get more money than the rest of the band. Here we go. Uh-oh. Peter Cetera got a hell of a lot of money off this one. Okay? And yeah, it's about money sometimes. And it's about, you know, these guys wanted to be a faceless band. That's why on these albums, for the most part, right? On these albums, yeah, they had posters that came with them and stuff with the band's faces and stuff. But really, you didn't see much of the band. I think on this one you get some. Yeah, I mean, you get some pictures here, right? Little, but it's not like a big dramatic thing. And all of a sudden, Peter Cetera is writing a number 1 hit. This is not a bad album, although interestingly enough, the first single issued off of this album was not If You Leave Me Now. It was Another Rainy Day in New York City, which was just this fun, light, poppy kind of Caribbean kind of flavored kind of song. It got into the top 40, but it didn't wow anybody. Probably one of the least of my favorite songs off this album, although I don't mind the song. But yeah, this was a turning point within the dynamics of the band. Really. Number 8, I believe, right? Chicago 10, otherwise known lovingly to a lot of us as the Chocolate Bar album, because it's got a chocolate bar on the cover, right? Right. The album that came after that, Chicago 11. Peter Cetera only got 1 song on this album, but it just happened to be the hit. Okay. Baby, What a Big Surprise. A great song and a pretty good hit. Take Me Back to Chicago, though, is a great song. There's a lot of really good stuff on here. Yes, it's a pop album. These by the late 70s, they were a pop band. They were not a, dare I say, progressive band anymore. They were a pop band. They were writing pop songs. As a matter of fact, one of the members in the band hated it, and that would be Terry Kath. And this would be the last album that he would do with Chicago. Supposedly, although he's no longer here to affirm this, people said that he was actually thinking about leaving Chicago, and he was planning on doing a solo album, which would have been really, 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 really interesting, because I guarantee you it wouldn't have sounded anything like this. Guarantee you it wouldn't have. And unfortunately, we know what happened to him in February of '78. He accidentally shot himself. And, you know, there are some people, I don't want to take and spend time on this too much, but there is some maybe a little bit. It was ruled as an accidental death. But the reality was he was depressed. He had supposedly broken up with his wife, or was having problems with his wife. Supposedly. He had been up a couple of days straight. Cocaine will do that to you, kids. It will. So he was loaded up on toot, and he was cleaning his gun, and he was doing some funky shit with his gun, and he was at his I think it was his guitar tech or one of the roadies' houses of the band, and they were like, "Hey, watch it with that." And he says, "Don't worry about it. It's not loaded. See?" It was over. You know, really, really too bad. What a brilliant guy. But last album, and it's a good album. It really is. But it's not as good as the rest. This is going to piss people off. I've been saying that a lot. This really will. I like this album. I don't know why I like this album. And when I was talking to my friend Tony about it, we both agreed this is a pretty damn good album. I don't know why. Yeah, this is the first album. This is Hot Street. No Terry Kath. No progressive. It was a pop album. It was a purely pop album. They got rid of their producer, James William Guercio, and a lot of people hate this album because they compare it to early Chicago. I don't know why. I dig it. Alive Again. I remember when Alive Again, was first issued as a single, and I'm like, oh God, what's Chicago going to do? I mean, I didn't even think, a lot of us didn't think Chicago was going to continue, because at first it didn't seem like they were going to, after Terry had killed himself, or at least his accidental boo-boo, got his accidental boo-boo gunshot to the head. So a lot of us Chicago fans were like, that's the end. And then they came out with this, and a lot of Chicago fans went, this is sacrilegious. This is BS. No, 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 no. No. Not only did you continue after Terry passed away, you put out this pop shit that he would have hated, and he probably would have. I don't know. But I like the leadoff track, Alive Again, is great. There's some decent stuff on here. No Tell Lover, yeah, it's gushy, mushy stuff, but If You Leave Me Now was fine, at least for me, there was earlier stuff, Wishing You Were Here was mushy, gushy stuff, and that was from a great album. So, what the hell? So, yes, I'm sorry. I'm putting this fairly high. Chicago Hot Street. 1978. Late 78. Out of the 80s albums and beyond, this is the one that I like the best. And when this came out, I don't think it was too far removed from, well, it was kind of, to this. Number one, David Foster. It was the first album with David Foster. And David Foster came in and said, listen to the band's demos. They'd gotten signed to Warner Brothers, Full Moon, subsidiary. And Foster came in and said, your demos suck. We're going to rewrite the entire album. So he inserted himself. He was literally another member of the band. Robert Lamb was pushed to the side. The horn sections, for the most part, were pushed to the side. Now, the band tries to gloss this over a little bit with the Robert Lamb situation. Robert Lamb was trying to get sober. He was having a lot of personal problems. So he willingly stepped back. I doubt it. Just saying, I doubt it. He was still a part of the touring band, but honestly, from this point on, for the most part, especially through the big hit 80s years into the early 90s, he was pushed aside. And I think it was on purpose, which is really a shame because he's a great songwriter. He was a great singer. You had a couple of keyboard players in the band, and David Foster was a keyboard player, great keyboard player. Really arrogant dude, though. Really kind of a... Ugh. But he was great at what he did. He'll tell you that he's great at what he does. And he's correct, but, you know, I prefer you letting the music do the talking instead of your pie trap. But David likes to talk about himself a little bit. Did a great job on this, though. I remember when this came out and thought, you know, this is pretty damn good. Yeah, ballads. You got the two ballads. You have to have... They're the ballad band now for the most part. And you got Peter Cetera all over this, and it's the Peter Cetera kind of David Foster show at this point in time. The rest of the band kind of just went along with it, and they made a shit ton of money. I mean, I get it, but I like this album from 1982, Chicago 16. Okay. We have what, 5 more here? 5 more. At number 5, I think this was probably the biggest transition album, other than like, yeah, I think this is probably a really, really big transition album. This was where they really stepped away from what, again, and I use this word, some people who love progressive rock or progressive music go, Chicago is not progressive. Don't say that. Shame on you. Go put yourself in a corner. I'm sorry, but I view their early work as progressive. Maybe different than King Crimson, right? Or Yes, sure. But Renaissance was a progressive band too. And they were definitely different than King Crimson. And so that's why I put this in here. But this album, we're talking about Chicago 8, 1975. This album, they really stepped away from the longer pieces, the more adventurous stuff. See, I didn't say progressive. Okay. And made a more streamlined, kind of rock-oriented album. I like this album a lot. Yes, I know that it's not the classic early stuff, but I like this album. The 2 singles off of this, Old Days. I love that friggin' song. Great intro. That drum intro. Great song. Great, tight, catchy song. Harry Truman. I love that song. You know? And the rest of this album is good too. It follows in that same kind of tight pop rock. The horns are still very present there. They're just streamlining things. I know that Terry Kath was not happy about this, although he rocks on this album. But he wanted to be more adventurous, and I get that. And early fans who were really hip wanted them to be more adventurous. But the reality was they needed to stay relevant. And even in the case of the 80s, I mean, you got to understand, this is Chicago 2 would not have flown, or Chicago, or Chicago 3 would not have flown in 1982. They had to do this to survive. That was just the nature of the business. And I think they felt that they had to do this in 1975. And I think it's a great album. I really do. I enjoy this album a lot. Chicago 8 at number 5. This number thing is driving me friggin' nuts, right? It's Chicago 3 at 13. Chicago is like, okay, whatever. The last of their, I'm saying it, progressive albums to some extent. Chicago 7 from 1974. Yes, there's some pop stuff on here. Call on Me is on here, which it's a nice song. Not If You Leave Me Now. I can't see these tracks. Wishing You Were Here was on here as well. You know, a couple of really big hits. But like when you first got this album, when this first came out, all of side one, because this is another double album, the last of them, as a matter of fact. Put it on side one. The whole side was instrumental stuff. Then half of side two is instrumental stuff before you get into any vocals. And I'm sure that when this came out, people were like, okay. And I'm sure that the people liked the early couple of Chicago albums were like, right on, they're back. But this is a great amalgamation of jazz and kind of it's kind of like a bunch of different forms of jazz and pop and there's a word I'm looking for and I can't think of it right now. I'm sure I'll think of it right after I'm done with the video, but just a great album. Love this album because it's really the best of both worlds for Chicago. And they were able to do that on their early albums. I think they were able to be a bit experimental. Fusion was the word I'm looking for. There's some hints of fusion, not even hints of fusion. There's some fusion jazz on here. Shows just how freaking great these guys were at their instruments. And they still were able to get some hits off this. So I think it was a good compromise. 1974's Chicago 7. Top 3, kiddies. After 3, I'm French, right? 1, 2, 3. After 3 albums, double albums, I think Chicago was like, okay, we're running out of stuff. Instead of making and they'd done Live at Carnegie Hall, which was a 4-album set, I believe, right? Got the album downstairs. Anyway, they were like, I think we're pooped out. We need to kind of encapsulate everything. We're going to do a single album. So their first release as a single album, Chicago 5. This is a great friggin' album. There's kind of fusiony jazz on here. There's pop. There are ballads. This is just a great friggin' album. Of course, this is the album 1972, by the way. This album has the massive hit Chicago Saturday in the Park, which I believe made it all the way up to number 2 on the charts. It has the wonderful song Dialogue, which was released as a single as well, but didn't do quite as well. Just a great album. Great album. And obviously, it's my 3rd favorite Chicago album. Okay. Number 2 and number 1 are the first 2 albums, right? I mean, that kind of, need I say more? Maybe not, but I'm gonna. Okay. My number 2, some people would put this, at number 1. I get it. I'm good with that. Chicago Transit Authority. This was the original name of the band when they picked the name. William Gershio suggested it, I think. Chicago Transit Authority. That was great. The only problem is they didn't ask the Chicago Transit Authority if they could use it. So they were told, you got to change your name. So they after this album, they just changed it by taking Transit Authority off, and they became Chicago. That's fine. That's how that all turned out. That's why on their first album, they are actually Chicago Transit Authority. And if you listen to live stuff, like the live at Toronto Peace Festival concert, things like that, they'll say, ladies and gentlemen, Chicago Transit Authority. That was their name. Great album. Here's the only problem. It's a double album. Both of these are double albums. But I think that this album, towards the end, the last couple songs kind of get a little tired for me. And although I appreciate it, I do. Free From Guitar, it's a very experimental avant-garde, just distortion and all. Let's let Terry just see what kind of sounds he can get out of his guitar and his amp. And it's interesting for like the first time or something for me, but it doesn't really work for me. But I get it. I get why it's on here. It especially for the times and who he was, it fits. But it just doesn't work for me. Like I said, other than the fact that that's on there and the last couple songs, like I said, it kind of peters out a little bit for me. This is a great freaking album. This is a great double album. Well worth your listen. So at number 2, Chicago Transit Authority from 1969. All right, kids. You know what number 1 is. It's probably a lot of people's number 1 album, especially if you're a long-term fan of Chicago. Of course, it's simply Chicago, or you can call it Chicago 2, but it's titled Chicago. Again, this suffers just a little bit from the fact that it's a double album. I'm sorry. Still a great friggin' album, though. Oh my God. They took... This is when I was talking about Chicago 7, saying it's kind of like a really perfect amalgamation of fusion and jazzy stuff and some experimental stuff, along with pop sensibilities, great pop stuff. This is it too. This is really just really it, man. I love this friggin' album. I've always loved this album. Massive hits on here, Make Me Smile. Of course, one side is an entire suite. They have a tendency, and within that suite you get the full version, even though it's kind of on either end of this long piece of music. You get Make Me Smile, and then it ends with Make Me Smile. And for the 45, they kind of discombobulated them and put them together. That's how you get it. In the middle of that, you get, William Perazada and his beautiful, very sensitive flute solo on Color My World. And yeah, great album. Just a great album. If I said that this is a great album, it's a great friggin' album. Okay? All right. So this, to me, is the number 1 Chicago album of all time. All right, kids. Let me know what you think. I appreciate each and every one of your comments. Blah, 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 blah. Or what's that? That Charlie Brown. Yeah. You know it all, but I really sincerely do mean it, guys. I appreciate each and every one of you. Please like, please subscribe, please comment. Let me know what you think. Let me know what you want to see. I've been doing a lot of ranking videos lately because people seem to like those, and I like doing them. And it's an excuse in some cases for me to buy some more music, because I like to buy music. Nothing wrong with that. I don't have a wife anymore to tell me, what the hell are you doing? Why are you spending all your money on music? She's gone. I'm having fun. Anyway, again, thank you for watching these things. And until next time, everybody, peace and love.